tuned in and live with the community. This is the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform Development Biweekly call. Today is September 28th. It is our last call for September in 2023. How did that happen? Fall is just around the corner. October, Hacktober, you got it. We're excited. Let's see what we're going to talk about today. We're going to have updates on the community. We're going to talk about PNP.NET libraries, PowerShell, Yo Teams, Microsoft Teams Toolkit, MGT, Publisher Connectors. We're also going to talk about script samples, team samples, Power Platform samples, all the samples in all one place for you. And of course, everybody's favorite time, picture time. Then we're going to get our all-star presenters of the day. Kevin is going to cover bringing third-party APIs to the Teams AI story. April is going to be here to talk about using community hits and Copilot tips with the Power Platform Prompts repo. And Anoop is back showing us how he can build Microsoft Teams message extensions for stock data with an OpenAI function calling feature. Excited for all of these. But first, let's talk about some resources that are available to each and every one of us. We've got community videos, LinkedIn groups for discussions. We've got open source tooling and software that is available for you to make life easier. I mentioned those sample galleries. We got plenty of them. Teams, SPFX, Power Platform, list formatting. All you got to do is remember 7,000 URLs. Just kidding. You just got to remember one. ak.ms/community/home will give you access to all these resources. And guess what? They are absolutely free. So check out ak.ms/community/home, and you'll be able to continue using all of them for free all the time. Now, you're on a community call because you like them. Well, we got plenty more for you. Let's start off with the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform weekly call. Now, what makes this unique is Microsoft Speaker. So all those program managers, product managers, building the cool stuff that we all love to do things with, they're going to be there showing stuff off. It's on Tuesdays at 8 a.m. Pacific. Get your invite, ak.ms/community/MS speakers call invite with a bunch of dashes in there. You see it on the screen. We'll put it in the links for you, and you got it. Then we've got our Power Platform monthly call, which is going to be coming up right in the middle of the month, next month in October. It's the third Wednesday of every month. It's going to be right after the Power Platform Community Conference, I should say. So we're going to have some cool updates there. And then, of course, our Office add-ins and our sibling calls, Microsoft 365 Power Platform Community, which you are on now, and our Viva Connection SharePoint Framework. You can get access to all the calls at ak.ms/community/calls. So go get them, add them to your calendar with those ICS invites, and we will see you at all of them. Speaking of that Microsoft call, what's the agenda for Tuesday? Well, we've got Wallet coming in to give us the latest on the Microsoft 365 developer proxy. Aicha is going to cover using Azure OpenAI and GPT prompts to generate completions for email and SMS messages so that we can be cool with those mobile devices. And then, of course, Shubnam is going to cover getting started with adaptive card-based loop components. So wide spectrum of opportunity for us. Again, 3rd of October at 8 a.m., ak.ms/MS community calls invite with all those dashes. Now, you're going to see some really cool stuff today by our community and Microsoft presenters, and you're going to wonder, I want to show stuff off, and we welcome you to. All you got to do is fill out this request form, ak.ms/community/request/demo, and we will reach out to you, and we'll schedule you. And you may be thinking, I don't know, my stuff's pretty basic. Guess what? Basic is fantastic. So don't overthink it, everybody. You don't have to create a flux capacitor, make time travel possible. Show us the cool feature that you've recently learned about, maybe something that's newly released that you think is really cool and you're using in a fun way or a great way. Show it off. And if you've never presented before, we'll buddy you up with somebody. So just let us know in the notes that you're looking for a buddy, and we will absolutely partner you up with another MVP. You'll work on it together and you'll present together. And it's a fantastic way to collaborate with more in the community. Now, you also might want a little hands-on guidance with some things, maybe like contributing a sample. And guess what? We got you covered there too. Hugo Bernier, tell me a little more. Tell me more. Tell me more.
So we have this guidance where we actually show you how to get started with things like GitHub and writing for the web and things like that. I know GitHub can be very scary. I remember my first pull request, I thought I was going to destroy the repository. And that's what was actually holding me back from contributing to the community. But with Sharing is Caring, we have small hands-on sessions that are never recorded, where we show you exactly the steps to do your first pull request. In fact, we will do a pull request together. So at the end of the session, you have done your first pull request. We've ripped the Band-Aid off. And because we never record the session and because they're small sessions, It's okay to ask questions. You don't have to worry. No one's going to make fun of me. In fact, most people just make fun of me during the call. But these are great sessions. You can actually find out more by going to aka.ms/sharing-is-caring. And once you have contributed to a Sharing is Caring session, something happens. David, you want to talk about that?
Oh boy, do I. Something sure happens. You are eligible for our community recognition program. And this is a program that provides recognition powered by Credly for all the amazing work that you are doing. Now, it's free. There are plenty of opportunities for you to get involved and opt in for these wonderful badges. And because, I don't know, fall and October/Hacktober is right around the corner, we got some fun thematic badges, pumpkin spice, a lot of commits, and our Hacktoberfest badge. So we are right and ready for that Hacktoberfest event. Definitely go in there, get some contributions made. All you need to do is to get this badge from the community, and it's a fantastic way to collaborate with others as well. So ak.ms/community/recognition. Now let's get to some project-specific updates, and we'll start with Bert on PNP.NET libraries.
Thank you, David. For the PNP.NET world, some updates for PNP framework. Kunzomos did an update to enable stream and XML options to load tenant templates. So that's something that they're using in the PowerShell side. So it'll be an equivalent PowerShell update there. And then Jack Stanger did some work on when you extract a site into a template, and there's a library with the default values for folders. Something went wrong, and Jack fixed that. Thanks for that, Jack. On the Cross Decay side, which is the newer library, there is one change by David Patchy, enabling our external authentication provider to call async. So the external authentication provider enables you to do whatever you want and give us the access token. So you fully own the authentication, and that was kind of synchronous still, and now it's async as well, which is really nice because we want everything to be async. And with that, let's move to PowerShell. Thank you all.
Awesome. Got him. Take it away.
Thanks, David. Can you change the slide?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, okay. It must be just delayed today. Teams is having a day.
Yeah. Well, about PNP PowerShell, we crossed 9.2 million downloads. Feeling pretty good about that. What's going on with the latest nightly builds? We added a new commandlet here, which is called get PNP tenant info. It will help you retrieve tenant information such as the tenant ID, default domains, and a couple of other more information that you might require in your further processing stuff. Besides that, we have been not so lazy. We have also improved quite a few commandlets here. So we improved the search configuration, the file upload, as well as the PNP tenant template, which Bert mentioned in the previous slide here. So those PNP tenant templates now support stream and XML templates as well. And we also extended the set PNP Microsoft 365 group to also support dynamic group membership as well. So yep, that was the update from us. If you run into any issues, do reach out to us on discussion forum as well as on the GitHub issue list. Would absolutely love to hear from you. Over to you, David. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Gautam. We'll move into Yo Teams with Stefan.
Thank you, David. We do not have much to share as last time, as we didn't release a new version of Yo Teams yet. The reason for that is we wanted to fix some bugs which have been reported by users on GitHub most recently before releasing the actual new version of 4.1.1. Apart from that, we're discussing the future of Yo Teams, and we want to make sure that Microsoft 365 developers have everything they need in order to develop awesome apps on top of Microsoft 365, so stay tuned. And as always, please feel free to contribute, join discussion on GitHub, file issues if you think there's something missing in your teams. We'd definitely like to hear from you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's move into Teams Toolkit. John is out today, so I'll cover this. Version 5.2 of Teams Toolkit for VS Code is out. It's got some new samples and templates, as well as an AI chatbot and link unfurling template. The biggest note to take away here is that the Copilot plugins and simplified message extensions need your feedback. So if you're building bots, definitely go reach out to John. You can do that at aka.ms/tck-chat. So reach out to him. He would love to collaborate with all of you in the community. This is a very, very cool project to get involved with and a useful tool as well. Next up, we've got Microsoft Graph Toolkit. 3.1.2 is out. The samples repository is live. These MGT components are the coolest and easiest way to integrate Graph into your solutions. They are configurable and extensible, so definitely get involved. Seb would love and be eager to collaborate with everyone. If you have any questions, just let them know. And of course, there's always help wanted and good first issues available in the issues list, which you can get to at aka.ms/mgt/issues. For all things MGT, check out aka.ms/mgt. All right, let's move into some independent publisher connectors with Jocelyn.
Hello, everybody. As always, we have even more connectors in our platform. We're now at 1,075 with 50 more made by independent publishers, community members like yourself, then made by Microsoft. Connectors is going to have a very strong presence in MPPC coming up just next week, and I wanted to bring one specific session to your attention. Partners Powering Plugins is a special theater session where we'll be talking about ISV-enabled connectors turned into plugins that can be leveraged in M365 scenarios. We've been talking about this for a few months, so I'm super excited to finally be able to demo that for you. Wanted to specifically bring it up because it's not listed as a session in Whova, it's listed as a community meetup, but that link will be in the chat. Afterwards, during our next Connectors Labs call, we'll be doing a specific What You Missed at MPPC session for those of you who weren't able to make it. So looking forward to sharing all of that with you. See you all soon. Thank you, David.
Awesome. Thank you, Joss, and we're looking forward to seeing you next week. Let's move on to script samples with Paul Bullock.
Script Samples is a place where you can share your scripts with the community. So we cover things like PnP PowerShell, SPA Management Shell, CLI for M365, and many, many more. And we've just crossed a good milestone. So we've now got over 300 scripts on the repository now. So thank you very much to all those that have contributed to this. And we've also got a bunch of new samples that have come in. So we've got for CLI for 365, we've got the export Teams channel conversation to HTML5 by Siddharth. We've got some new scenarios with PnP PowerShell. So we've got report and SharePoint file incidents by Michelle. We've got PnP Modern Search v3 usage scanner by Casper. I've written a sample around bringing your own data with Azure OpenAI into that. We've also got some updates to PnP PowerShell. So we've got reset file permissions, unique inheritance by Mark Anderson. And we've got SPA Management Shell, which is now a new sample from Chandani to export inactive sites based on data to CSV. So thank you very much to all these awesome contributions. If you need any help with getting established with a contribution, please feel free to reach out. And don't forget, it is Hacktoberfest, so the repos have been marked accordingly, so you can contribute, and they will count towards those that program. Back to you, David.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul. And friends, this is one of the easiest ways to get involved. We all have those utility scripts, so reach out to Paul, take advantage of his availability. He's a great guy. All right, let's move on to Microsoft Teams samples. So there are plenty of team samples. In fact, you can also see some of the Hackfest solutions that were available. Just head on over to ak.ms/m365/samples or community/samples. We'll get that updated, and then you can access all of these wonderful samples. Now, we're open for more, so reach out to Bob German if you have any questions. He's another great guy that's excited to work with everybody. And let's move into Power Platform samples with April Dunnam.
Yeah, so I wanted to highlight our Power Platform prompt library. So this is your go-to place if you're using some of the Power Platform copilots or any of the AI tools in the Power Platform and outside of the Power Platform, like Azure OpenAI. And this is the place you can go and get inspiration and ideas for what you can do and what you can put into these copilots and things. So we have all kinds of examples from how to automate customer process things and invoices and all of that kind of stuff. All these samples are out there. We just got some new ones from Ralph the other day, which you're excited to see. So definitely welcome your contributions in that repo as you're working more with all of the AI tools in and outside of the Power Platform there. Go to aka.ms/Power Platform prompts. Now, speaking of prompts, though, we have something really timely. We're still in our Power Platform AI hackathon. This is actually the last day of the hackathon. So hackathon submissions are due by 11:59 Pacific time today. And we have a closing session to wrap it all up nice nicely. And we're going to be joined by Steven Siciliano, the VP of Power Automate, and he's going to be doing a little closing keynote and a live Q&A actually pretty much right after this call at 9 a.m. I just realized the time is wrong on that, 9 a.m. Pacific. And so if you have any questions that you want to get answered from Steven, definitely encourage you to join that call and that live stream there, and we will get them answered in real time. So really looking forward to that and hope you can join us. And if you haven't already, make sure to get your hackathon submissions in there today.
Awesome. Thank you, April. We'll see you again in a few minutes on this very topic. So it's everybody's favorite time. It is picture time. Sylvester's going to take on over, which he has done.
I'm too fast,
You are.
Yes.
It's almost like you know what's coming.
On my camera. Yes, I kind of knew. Maybe, or maybe it was a guess. It's a bit pixelated today. Let's hope that it gets better. I will not enable my camera, and we're getting better. We're getting better. So we still have some seats in the room. A few more. It is a bit pixelated today. We cannot help on that. A few more seats in the room. We're not recording quite yet. One more second. Oh, now it's getting better. Excellent. I think we're close. I will put the recording on, and let's do some hand waving, everybody. We'll grab a GIF animation out of that. Thank you for joining. Once again, awesome, recognizable faces. A lot of recognizable faces in the room. A lot of new faces in the room. This is awesome. Brilliant. Thank you for joining. And let's get back on the scheduled program, David.
All right, now back to your regularly scheduled program of our community call. Next up on the episode of September 28th, Kevin McDonnell is going to be our presenter, bringing third parties APIs to the Teams AI story. Kevin, take it away. You're muted, though.
Thank you very much. And when you go to speak and then you think, I'm going to share my screen, and suddenly that mute button moves, don't you just love it? Right. Thank you very much, everyone. As David said, I'm going to be speaking about how you can bring your third-party solutions in. So bringing those APIs that you've got into that Teams AI story. Very quick thing about me. Hello, solutions architect Avanade. Been around the community, MVP for about 3 and a bit years now. Member of the Viva Explorers and the Grey Hat Beard Princess podcast. Do hit me up on the socials with the links and details there. But that's enough about me, because what I want to get excited about today is Teams AI. First had the chance to look at this library. It came through, as was talked about, as part of the MVP summit before it was made live. And I was like, ooh, so we've got a nice way of bringing that magic of AI into Teams apps and surfacing that in bots. And I was like, I really like the sounds of this. So I'm going to talk about the kind of problems and where it's going to come in and help with things on there. I'm going to talk about some of the challenges that you face in there, and also one of those challenges that I've managed to overcome. And that's really what I'm sharing today. In terms of what is Teams AI, if you think about it, you've got this dev and you want to build that power of Azure OpenAI or the OpenAI APIs as well. And you want to bring those prompts to define kind of how your app responds to different messages. So you can have that chatbot and you can give your bot a bit of style. So you say, I want my bot to be a super cool Finn that is just laid back all the time, even when his machine blue screens on a regular basis, just stays calm, except when he's up on stage and wants to jump off on there. You can define these prompts and let it fill out those style and reply in that very artistic, fabulous way on there. But you can also do a bit more with that in terms of how you get it to guide the responses that you get. And one of the things I love is to connect into third-party APIs and use that to bring back the data as well. Now, I'm going to do a very quick demo here before I get into the main part of the demo, because I want to talk about how easy with the Teams toolkit that it is to actually bring up and get started with this. So I've got a brand new bot here. I'm in VS Code. I've got to keep an eye on the chat. So hopefully that's big enough text for everyone, but give me a shout out if you want that any bigger. And I have that Teams toolkit installed. And I can go in, I can create a new app, And from that app, I've got a few options, especially maybe if you're thinking a bit about Copilot. There's those message extensions, you know, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, say no more. But more importantly for today, if you bring the bots, there is now, as of the latest version of Teams Toolkit, this AI chatbot, and this makes it even easier. Previously, you could create the bot and there were a few steps, but now you click on this button and you get, I'm not going to run through that now, but that will bring you this up within there. There's a couple of steps you need to do. So you'll need to build out your to get your key from your Azure OpenAI instance and put that into the env.local. Now you're thinking, Kev, click on that and then we can all see your key. But I'm not that daft, I hope. So hopefully I won't click on that any minute. But once you set up your keys within there, then you can start working on it. There's a couple of key files here, index.tx, that sets up all the details. But with this bot now, you don't actually need to touch that one. Everything you need is here within this app.ts. And you can see it sets up your imports, those details from the Teams AI library itself. If you're not, I do love a good console log. Probably shouldn't do that in a production app, but it's great for these play ones on there. And then you can see it configures your what's called the OpenAI planner. One of the bits that you need to change in here is where you set up your model within Azure OpenAI. And let me just bring that window where I've got it. In the Azure OpenAI Studio, you've got your different models that you can set up, whether you've got that GPT-4 or you're still looking at 3.5. And then from there, you can deploy those and give them a name. And it's that name, let me just make that a little larger for people. It's that name that you want to pull out and use into that details there. And what I love about this playground is that you can go in there and you can have a chat with the bot in here. So you can define your system message, a super cool laid back Finn that hates shoes. Any advice for speaking at conferences? And you can play around to get an idea from the types of different items on here. So you can see this is what you get back in your bot that comes through. So you can start to try out those different prompts that you get through from it and then bring that model across. The other bit to note, and I've gone blind as to where it is. Yeah. So I've set that up in the Azure OpenAI planner because I'm using Azure OpenAI. If you're using OpenAI and using the kind of chat GPT models, then you've got this other section there. So just note these two different things. By default, it will be set up with this OpenAI. You just need to comment out this line and re-comment that. And I love what the Teams Toolkit's done. It's made it a lot easier to get started with those two different versions. Just to show you what that looks like, I'm not going to run the actual thing because I've got my other bot run nicely, but here's the example. You can see if you've put the wrong bits into there, you can put the different air there. And what I love is it notices that you entered a random set of characters in there and comments on that. But once you are working, you can say, what sort of thing can you help with? What books would you recommend on Viva, for example? You can just have that general chat. But that's, sorry, getting distracted by that chat message about the old farts doing SharePoint. I feel particularly targeted on that one. But you can bring this chat through into your bot very, very easily. Just going to hop back over. If you want to bring that personality through, here you can see the basic one is you are an AI assistant. Here, give this to give more information and power on there. And you're right, Ralph. Yes, you can bypass PVA on this and get a much cheaper alternative, but that's an argument for a different day. Right, let's come back to the slides a sec. So that's a very quick way, and keep an eye. Hopefully, David is posting some of the links there on how to get started. Very easy on that to get started, especially with the Teams Toolkit on there. So some of the challenges that you start to, some of the things to consider is that when you take that Teams toolkit, it will cater for different LLMs. So as I say, you can use OpenAI. You could also use the Hugging Face ones as well. It does have support for OpenAI 4. One thing I would say is that when you create those deployments of your model, make sure you prefix it with GPT-. There's a tiny little thing in the documentation in the code that mentions that. But if you are lucky enough to have the GPT-4, make sure you reference that to get the full power from it. And I would recommend making sure you do that. One of the things, if you've looked at some of the latest, you can now bring your own data into that Azure OpenAI. So you can provide Azure Cognitive Search, and that brings citation. At the moment, the Teams AI library doesn't support that. I would love to see more backing of there to try and bring that through. I've started looking at building that in, but time hasn't helped in there. So that is something that would be really useful, that when you bring your own data, that it provides the references to that. So if you wanted to build your own Copilot for that limited scenario, it would really help with that as well. I know there's some of us looking and chatting about how we can better help with that as well. And then finally, one of the big issue I found is that I wanted to do that connections to third party, and I just couldn't find an easy way to do it. So I raised the discussions. I used the right way of engaging with your open source communities, and had a chat and found out it was actually supported. And actually built into that Teams AI library is support for OAuth. And the second you've got OAuth, you've got that way to connect to all sorts of different systems using your SSO and bringing those things in there. And then there's capabilities, which I'll show in a minute, to make sure that when you make certain phrases, that it routes through to that capability. And then using those prompts to make the most of calling those libraries as well. So I'm going to go into a demo, talk about how to configure that OAuth. I've been desperately trying to write this up properly in a blog and failing miserably on that, but I promise at some point it will, and it is on the library that I've mentioned in there. Keeping half eye. I can see one there about OpenAI being trained on more current information. Yes, it is, but it is still within that realm. It won't expand and take on the latest. If you want to pull in latest information from other systems, then you need to find different ways to do that. Okay. Let's jump back. Now, I actually created this bot from the Teams toolkit, but before the AI one was in there. So whereas previously you saw I was looking at the app.ts, all the same functionality. If I come up to the top here, you can see that same planner, and I'm still doing that log of those OpenAI endpoints and keys. Must keep an eye on that and change those after this, but it shouldn't come up on here. So here you can see that same planner all in that same index within there, and it's got the other configuration. You can even now bring in the moderator onto that. So if you wanted to stop someone swearing and talking about the wrong thing, then you can add that moderator built into that to either OpenAI or Azure OpenAI. Where things get different to the others is this block here around authentication. And this is the part that will hopefully take your SSO to the bots, but you define this connection name here, and that's set up in the config, so in the environment variables, and that will use your bot config. So I'm going to jump over, if I can find my window. Here you can see that I'm in a resource group. I've got here, if I jump back to the overview, I'm here in a bot service. So when you create your bot in Azure by publishing it, you have this resource in there. By default, and I've got this in the notes on there, it goes to, I think, dev.botframework.com, and you can transfer that over. So even if you're just doing local, you don't have to provision this up. You can take the local version and make that an Azure one. And that's the step you need to do, because within this configuration, and I'm hoping, there we go. Within this configuration, you add those OAuth settings down the bottom. And if I click on there, you can define your provider. So obviously in most cases, it's the Azure Active Directory. You can give it a name, you can give it that ID secret, but you've got other providers here. So one of the samples I'm working on at the moment that I can't see listed there is ServiceNow, but you could connect up to Trello, you can connect up to Salesforce. This same method will work for anything with OAuth that you can bring it back to. And that name there is what you will put in, that's what you put in this connection name in the config. And then it will use that configuration for the OAuth to go and connect into there. Now, when you do that, in this case, with the Microsoft 365 community, what's the most used API we have? Obviously, it's the Microsoft Graph. So I've built this sample based on that. And if I jump up here, I've just created in here a graph service. So any of the calls I'm making to the graph, call this graph service. And in the constructor, I'm just passing it a token. And this part here that will grab it, and if it's not set, will bring from that auth provider to set the token as a variable here. And then whenever I'm calling the graph client, it's set up that token. So if I come back, you can see here, when I'm instantiating that graph service to call within this function, I'm just passing this property, and this is a fixed property as part of the Teams AI library to send that auth token. So by setting up this configuration here, setting up that OAuth in the Azure portal, you can then retrieve that token and you can pass it on. And at that point, the world is your oyster. So to give you an example, you can see here that I've got these actions. So in this case, I've said read mail. And what I want it to do is call the graph service that will go in there, return some mails, return that using the create mail cards, which is just below. I've got in my code here, where have they gone? Some adaptive cards. So it'll look nice, pretty using adaptive cards.io, build out that, retrieve the function, load that, blah, 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 load that into there, and I can render those results. And that's a really nice way of doing it. And let's just bring up, I'm going to cheat slightly and not do it live right now because I need to make sure that no one emails me with anything under NDA that I get in trouble. But here you can see I've returned those cards as different bits of news on there. Lovely news from Rencore on their blogs, sooner, safer, happier. That's bringing my mails through. Now, would you really want a bot to do that? Probably not, but it gives you an indication. I'm going to try and speed up to make sure I've got lots of other time for other people, because what's more interesting, and also you don't always want to put adaptive cards hard-coded in there. If I look at the search results, so I've got in here another query, search for files about Viva, and again, I've got an adaptive card. But if I go back to where this is, let me just scroll down a bit, you can see I did have that hard-coded. But now I'm actually chaining together. So I'm calling summarize search, which is another prompt on there. Make sure I get the right one. There it is. I think it's that one. And you can see if I hide there, return the JSON for an adaptive card with a carousel. I have not hard-coded any adaptive card in there. I've asked the Azure OpenAI to return the adaptive card for these. And here is another function. If I go back to index, just below that is search files for the query. I can pull the conversation out, and here you can see I'm pulling that search query that has been defined in the line above. I'm calling my graph service to bring back that query and load that result. So effectively, the prompt is loading those results in there, and that becomes my prompt. And the reason I'm showing that is because you can build this prompt up in that playground to get those results. So I haven't hard-coded any adaptive card. It's pulling that automatically from Azure OpenAI. And this is really what I'd love you all to think about with your prompts, is taking a bit in a different way. Another example here is I've taken the results from my calendar.
Hey, Kevin,
for the last
just one
2
real
weeks.
quick. Sorry to interrupt. Just we're almost into the next demo time, so if we could just wrap it up real quick.
I will rush
Sorry
through
about that.
very quickly. Absolutely. On there, this is taking the kind of looking at the well-being and productivity And if I just very quickly go back to that, apologies to, I think, April, who's next. You can see here, it's looking like I've got quite a busy calendar with back-to-back meetings. It's essential to have breaks. It's taking those results and bringing them back as a nice, easy, engaging way. So it's not just about putting things in cards. It's about bringing these text-based ways through to show for other people. If you do have questions, there's a few links for people. The sample I've got, I think David's put into the chat there as well. I would definitely recommend looking at some of the semantic kernel. And also Gary Trin has been doing some lovely work in an alternative way instead of Teams AI about using a different framework called LangChain. So well worth taking a look at that. But otherwise, I will finish up and hand over there.
Hey everyone, I am April Dunnam, and I'm a Power Platform advocate at Microsoft. Happy to be here talking about the Power Platform prompts repo and doing a quick demo of that. This is my YouTube channel if you want to reach me there. That's also my handle on all the socials, so that's how you get in touch with me. All right, so let's dive right in. So who all has been there? Generative AI gives us endless possibilities, and we're excited about all the stuff that we can do with it. And then you start thinking about it more, and you're like, generative AI gives us endless possibilities, then where do I start? It can almost be overwhelming, right? When you have this amazing tool that you can do anything with, and you just don't know where to start with that blank canvas sometimes, and maybe you could use a little bit of help. So let's kind of dive into that a little bit, and then we'll talk about where the prompt repo, the library, fits in. So obviously it all starts with a prompt. That's how we interface with generative AI, whether it be any of the Power Platform tools and the co-pilots that we have across Power Apps and Automate and all that, Azure OpenAI, ChatGPT, DALL-E, Midjourney, all of those, we interface with those tools with prompts. So they're really just text-based queries or instructions that guide the AI model into generating content for us, whether that be text content, images, whatever tool that we're using there. Now, there's a few generative general tips here for kind of crafting the perfect prompt, I would say. A perfect prompt is maybe a far-fetched word, but you get where I'm going at here. First, clarity is key. So make sure that your prompt is clear, concise, specific, and you're really conveying the intent to avoid any misrepresentation. Provide context. That's really important as well. So give context to help the generative AI understand the scope and the purpose of what you're wanting it to help you with. Specify the desired output. This is another really good one. If you're wanting it in a very specific format, like I want to return this in, JSON format or whatever it might be, or this should be code, whatever that output, it should be a poem, a story. Specify that in your prompt. And use examples. Like here's an example of I want this, and this is really good where you can kind of specify the tone or the style that you're looking for so that it can better grasp your expectations. And of course, iterate and experiment. So we're going to be looking at the prompts library here, and a lot of the prompts that you're going to be seeing are made from people iterating and experiment. They're trying something and they're figuring out what works best to get the best result from the tools. So that is really where the prompt library is to the rescue. So that's kind of a lot to learn just to know how to write a good prompt to get the most out of the tools. And again, it could be overwhelming to know what you can even put in there. So with the prompt libraries here, that's really the purpose of it, is giving you a really good starting point that you can start with here to explore generative AI use cases. You can browse prompts that have been tested. So the ones that we have in there right now, people have tested these in the tools. They know that they work and get the output that they're expecting. So it helps you boost productivity. And then, of course, as we always talk about on these calls, we encourage you to share your prompts with others. So it's going to help others if you share the prompts that you have, because chances are if you're trying to use a co-pilot or an AI tool for something, someone else could benefit from that same use case. So that's why we're doing this. Now, there's also another thing that I'm going to be showing you a few different demos, but the other thing I want to show is a prompt manager app. So this is a sample on our Power Platform samples repo that I actually built that shows if you want to kind of do something more internally for your organization, that you can have this internal application built in Power Apps to kind of categorize your different prompts that you have, and then everyone in your org can benefit from that, and you can create a list of favorites. So with all that, let's dive into the demos that we want to show. So we're going to be highlighting a few prompts from the prompt repo and that prompt manager application, so you can see how it all works together. So the prompt library, and David, of course, is putting all these links in the chat here, is available at aka.ms/power platform prompts. So the first kind of stage that you'll get here is where you can browse the different prompts that we have. So this is kind of just an easy way to see what we have. So we can click on any one of these prompts like this plagiarism detector, and we can easily copy and paste directly from the screen, and we can filter by the different services that it's related to, like if there's Dolly prompts that we're looking for, Azure OpenAI, whatever it might be. But if we look at this, the base of it is on GitHub. So if we go over to GitHub here, there's a link, just by the way, in the upper right-hand corner that will take you to the GitHub repo where all of this is stored. So if we look at our prompt repo, we have a prompts folder. And then in that prompts folder, we have different folders for all other related technologies. So whether you're wanting prompts related to Power Apps, Automate, even Power Pages, we just got a new sample from Ralph on Power Pages, which is really cool, Power Virtual Agents, and AI Builder. So you would just dive into the different kind of folder that you want. So I happen to know that maybe I want some Power Apps prompts. So again, some of these are new prompts that we just had from Ralph the other day. So I can see there's one for a prompt collector, and then one that looks pretty interesting to me for the social media tracker for analytics. So we go into the prompt, and then we see a description of kind of what it does for us. So this particular one is helping to create a starting point where we can kind of track metrics for social media posts. And then, of course, supported languages. So this is another thing I wanted to highlight. If you're looking to contribute to the repo, we do eventually want to support multiple languages for these prompts as some of the copilots and things expand and support broader languages. So that's why if you look at the structure, you'll see this EN/US folder. So if you do speak other languages and you're able to put your prompts in different languages, eventually we can have that multi-language support. But the prompt itself is stored in those language folders. And if we want to use this, it's extremely simple. So here is a prompt that Ralph has already tested, and he knows that it gets him the result that he wants to build this social media tracking Power App. So now all I have to do is copy that and go over to Power Apps, and we'll use our Copilot. So we're at make.powerapps.com right now, and we'll go into the Power Apps Copilot, paste in Ralph's prompt. Now, another thing you'll notice in these prompts is we have these brackets, and in between the brackets, we have text. So this is the way kind of telling you that you want to customize the output here. So start in text, you want to remove that, and then you'll just replace it with your values. So whether you want, phone cloud apps or what you're wanting to track there. So I'll just, I'll keep what Ralph has. That sounds good. I'll just remove these start in text because that's the value that I want there. And let's go ahead and click enter. So we'll see what Power Apps Copilot does. We're doing this all in real time here. We'll see what happens. Now, I will say, sometimes with the Copilot, you might get slightly different results. So Ralph might have got something a little bit different in his Copilot than what I'm going to get here. But generally, it's pretty close. Oh, awesome. You gotta love Copilot there. It was just working the other day. And that's what I said with doing all this real time. Sometimes if you do it twice, it'll it'll behave, and we'll see what happens. If not, we'll move on to the next one because I know this works. There you go. Okay, there it is. So there's the app there, the Dataverse table in this case that the Copilot created for us. So that's pretty much everything that we need there to customize to have this social media tracking application. So it's automatically getting columns for reach and impressions and engagement and clicks and all that great stuff. So we just click create app, and then now we have a fully functioning Power App that's responsive and all the great stuff that Copilot gives us with Power Apps Copilot, thanks to that prompt from Ralph. I didn't have to go and think about exactly what I needed to put in to make that happen in the fields. I know that this works, and I'm good to go. So that's just a really great way of how this can help you. So this is a Power Apps example, but we have the same thing as we saw in the repo there for Power Automate and all the other different Power Platform tools. And Ralph is relieved that it worked. Of course it worked. I think that was user error on my part. Of course your prompt works. So I'll try to, if Power Apps would be really fast here, I just want to show you the outputted app. So here we go. Here's an app to be able to manage our social media, which is great. And then we have the same thing for Power Automate. So these are all the Power Automate examples that we have here. Again, all of these links are going to be in the chat, but if we want to do like an expense reimbursement workflow automation, there is a prompt for that, which same exact thing. We would just copy this particular prompt, go into Power Automate Copilot, and have it generate the suggested flow structure for us. And we could customize the inputs there of where we want to, send the request to and all that, and get pre-tested great prompts. And then finally, the last thing here. So this is, again, check out that prompt library and get some inspiration and ideas. And if you have prompts to share, please do share that on there. But that's more, everything that we put on there is externally facing. Everyone can benefit for it, which is great. But maybe you have some prompts that are really specific to your business, and maybe you don't want to share those widely, but you do want a system for your organization or maybe just for your personal use to keep track of your favorite prompts. And that's where this prompt manager application fits in. Again, this is all on the repo, so you can download and install that in your tenant and all that. But it just gives you a way to kind of arrange your prompts by products. So if you want to see all your, your Dolly prompts, your Azure OpenAI, and by category. So maybe you're getting prompts like marketing related, IT related, and then you can just browse those. And then it has an easy add to favorites. So you can create a list of your favorite prompts there. And then it has built-in copy and paste. So it's an easy copy button. I don't have to do what I was doing in the prompt repo there. And I can just copy that, paste that into my Copilot of choice or tool of choice, and I'm good to go. And you can add notes and all that. So it's just a really great tool to check out if you want to have an internal repository as well. So that is all I had. Definitely encourage you to check out the links David posted in the chat, to check out the repo, check out that application, and share your prompts as you're starting to use some of these AI tools.
Awesome. Thank you, April. By the way, you have full rights to just call me Hugo, since I'm just calling everybody by different names today, apparently. So thank you so much. This is super cool, everybody. Check it out. Prompts are fantastic. Super easy way to contribute. And that tool is super powerful. So did I say super enough? I think so. It's super. All right, let's move on to Anoop, building Microsoft Teams message extension for stock data with OpenAI function calling feature. Anoop, take it on over.
All right, great stuff. Thank you very much, David. So in this demo, we'll be talking about the Microsoft Teams message extension, which will help us provide the current stock price. And we do that using OpenAI function calling and an API called as FinHub, which we'll be looking at in a minute. Right. So my name is Anoop. I'm an MVP in the Microsoft 365 development category. I work at a company called Content and Cloud based in the UK. There are links to my profile, blog, Twitter, and GitHub. You can follow me on those platforms if needed. Right, so the agenda for today is we'll start with the demo first, and then we'll take a look at the OpenAI function calling feature. Then we'll have a look at the code, and we'll conclude. So before starting the demo, I would like to thank Lee Ford and Kunj for their samples on Microsoft Teams using OpenAI and an Adaptive Card extension which uses FinHub API. So I've used the combination of these two to create a message extension in Teams. So let's take a look at the message extension. So what we have here is a chat in Teams. What I'm going to do now is in this chat, as you can see, Megan has asked me about the stock price of Microsoft. So if I click on this and then open the stock price message extension, which is the custom one, what happens here is we can go ahead and ask a question saying, how is Microsoft? You can do a typo if needed. I will not do. So Microsoft doing, and then what this does is this sends a request to OpenAI along with the details that it gets from FinHub API, and then OpenAI looks at that information and then gives us a nice message over here saying just a funny message, and then it also has all the stock details which are provided by FinHub, and then we can go ahead and send that to Megan, who I guess will like it, as you can see from the chat history. So that's what this particular message extension does. Now, I know that there is a stocks message extension provided by Microsoft, but this one over here is just for demonstration purposes, because I just wanted to show how we can use OpenAI or how OpenAI comes into this picture, into the picture in order to show this functionality. Right. Now, if I go back to the presentation, so the scope of this particular message extension is applicable to both OpenAI and Azure OpenAI, and the models with which it can be used are GPT 3.5 Turbo and GPT-4. Yeah. In this particular sample, we are using OpenAI, but it can be changed to Azure OpenAI very easily. Now, before looking into the code, let's understand what function calling is, and then once we've got that understanding, we can come to know how we are using that in the code. So, function calling, we can think of that as extending OpenAI models. To give more functionality. So the way it works is whenever we ask a question, it understands the intent of the user, and based on that, it tells us which function to call. So to give you an example, if we ask OpenAI to get the current weather, OpenAI comes back with the response saying that it doesn't have access to the current weather because it's been trained until September 2021. However, if we tell OpenAI that our code has got some functions which can give the information about the current weather, then OpenAI tells us, okay, you can call that function in your code with certain parameters. And we go ahead and call that function and then send the response back to OpenAI. So for example, if you ask OpenAI to get the current weather in a particular city, OpenAI tells us you need to call the get current weather function in your code. And then we call that function and then send the data back to OpenAI. Right. So let's have a look at this function calling in a bit more detail. So imagine this particular message extension that I showed you did not have a function calling feature. And then if we go ahead and ask stock price of Microsoft, then what OpenAI does is it says it doesn't have access to stock data. So now let's say we introduce function calling feature into the message extension. So what we do is we take that question, stock price of Microsoft, and send that to OpenAI. Along with that, we also send a couple of functions that we have in our code. So we tell OpenAI that we've got a function called as get quote in our code, and also a function called display quote. So we pass these two functions. So basically, the name of the function and a nice description of what those functions do, along with this particular question to OpenAI. OpenAI gets this information and then it tries to understand the intent of the user. So in this case, we are asking for the stock price of Microsoft. So OpenAI understands that and tells us we need to call the function called as get quote, and then the argument symbol, the value of that must be MSFT. So OpenAI computes all this itself based on the question we have asked and tells us to call this function. And then what we do is in our code, we go ahead and call this function get quote. And then that get quote function might call some external API, in this case FinHub, and then gets the data, which can be raw JSON or anything else. So that data will include like the stock price details, like what's the current price, what was the high, low, etc. And then that particular JSON is sent back to OpenAI. OpenAI gets this JSON, interprets that, and then gives a nice message based on whatever the values are. We then take that message and then convert that into a nice adaptive card with the stock values that we had got earlier, and then show that to the user. So that's how function calling works. Now, let's take a look at this solution. So this particular message extension is a Teams bot. So if we look at this particular slide from right to left, so we've got the Teams client where the message extension resides, and then that communicates with an Azure bot. The Azure bot then passes the request to an Azure function. The Azure function then passes the request to OpenAI, and then the computer response is ultimately passed back to the Teams client. Now, I'm using an Azure function here as the backend in order to run the bot, but we can use any other backend as well if needed. Right. Now let's take a look at the code. So all this code is available on the GitHub Teams samples repository. So what if you look at the README and then follow the instructions, then you'll know how to set up the bot. And once the bot is set up, what we have to do is in the local settings.json file, we need to go ahead and change some of the values. So basically, we need to add an OpenAI API key and then add a model, and then also add the FinHub API key, which ultimately goes and gets the stock price. Once all the settings are done, the app will start running. So in this particular app, we've got a messages endpoint, which is an Azure function, and that particular Azure function runs using this index.ts file. So here we do the initial setup of the bot. This is all common code, which if you've created Teams bots before, and then in the bot file, which is an extension of the Teams activity handler, what we do is we need to start communicating with OpenAI. So firstly, we need to create this array called as OpenAI messages, because these are the messages which we will send to OpenAI. Firstly, we go ahead and get a system message. Now, that particular system message is, it has got the role of system, and then we describe how OpenAI should behave. So this was similar to the prompts that you saw earlier in Kevin's demo and in April's demo as well. So you can just tell how you want the system to behave. So in this case, I've just said it has to be a funny stockbroker so that it can respond with some funny messages. And once we have the system message, we go into submitting the message. So what we do here is we go ahead and get the query of the user and then push that to the OpenAI messages. So in this case, the query was, what's the stock price of Microsoft? So we put that in the messages array, and then we go ahead and call OpenAI with these messages. So there's a method called as call OpenAI, and that's what we are going to hit now. That is present in the helper file, openai.ts. So this one uses OpenAI library in order to call OpenAI. So it's quite straightforward. There's a method called as create chat completion, which expects some parameters like model, the messages, and tokens, etc. So we go ahead and call that method. And then in that particular method, like I said, it expects messages and functions. So messages are the ones that we saw earlier, and functions are the ones that we need to pass. So in this case, get quote or display quote and things like that. So if I just show you what gets passed to OpenAI, so we've got the system message that we saw earlier. We've got the user message, which is asking about the stock price of Microsoft. And then we send these functions, which we'll have a look at in a minute. So we send the name of the function and a nice description so that OpenAI can understand, based on the user's question, which function it needs to call. So all these details are sent to OpenAI. So if we take a look at that get quote function, so we can see that it has got a name, a nice description, and then it has got some parameters. So in this case, we are asking OpenAI to tell us what symbol we need to use, what's the name of the company, and what's the primary exchange. Now OpenAI uses its intelligence to give us the symbol, the company name, and the primary exchange based on the question that was asked. So in this case, for Microsoft, the symbol is MSFT, company name is Microsoft, and primary exchange is NASDAQ, I think. So that's the function. So we can define several functions like this based on our requirement and pass that to OpenAI. Now, the response that comes back from OpenAI is a JSON. So we go ahead and process that response. So OpenAI tells us we need to call a function, and the name of the function is get quote. And you can see that it has passed in the symbol, the name of the company, and primary exchange. So in this case, MSFT, Microsoft, and NASDAQ. So what we do is we go ahead and extract that JSON and get the name of the function, and we go ahead and call that function. So in this case, the function is called as get quote, and then here we use FinHub API and then pass the name of the symbol along with the API key. This then goes ahead and returns the data, which is raw JSON. We pass that JSON to OpenAI, and then OpenAI responds saying we need to stop the execution, and it tells us a nice message based on the system prompt. And then what we do is we go ahead and take that message and then put that in an adaptive card and then show that adaptive card to the end user. So in summary, function calling is available in OpenAI and Azure OpenAI. It helps us provide structured output. This sample uses OpenAI, but there'll be a PR coming soon to use Azure OpenAI instead. And here are some of the resources that were used for this demo. And with that, I hand it back to David.
Thank you, Anoop. Very, very cool stuff. Let me get the slides shared back out here. Really like this. It's very functional, useful, and I'm sure that it could be applied to different markets. The only feature request, maybe if you could build it in next time, is if it could tell me what the price will be tomorrow, that would be super cool. I would pay for that, actually. So maybe sometime in the future. Awesome. All right. Well, we've had a perfect... See what I did there? Perfect. A number of demos today. Kevin, April, and Anoop, thank you for sharing with us all of our presentations today. You all may have questions, or you may just want to let them know that they did awesome, which we welcome. Our Community Call Conversations is here for just that. We have forums set up in the Power Apps forum pages, the Power User site, where you can collaborate and ask questions. And like I said, just go let them know they did an awesome job. That is a contribution to the community. So we welcome anyone and everyone to let Kevin, April, and Anoop know they did great. These QR codes will take you directly to each forum. I will put the links in the chat directly after the call as well. But go let them know, everybody. They did a great job, and we want to celebrate and encourage them and let all of our presenters know each week that they did a good job. So please go let them know that. If you want to be one of the cool kids in the new Discord server for the community, you can do that. ak.ms/community/discord will get you access. We've got over 500, I believe, now that have joined up. It's a great single one-stop shop to communicate and collaborate on different topics about the community, and it's growing each day. So we welcome you to join in, no cost at all. And we'd love to get some feedback from you. So let us know how the calls are going. Let us know what you'd like to see more of. We've been looking at the feedback and looking to make some tweaks here in the coming weeks. So we appreciate everyone's feedback. But do keep letting us know if there are things you do like or want to see changed. It lets our management know that you are appreciating the calls and you find value in them. And we can continue to invest in them. So thank you for those who have and for those that will. The recording will be available within the next 24 hours on the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform Community YouTube channel. You can access that at ak.ms/community/videos. Subscribe. You'll get alerted as soon as that video drops. So don't try to download it from Teams. Teams is going to tell you that it's available for download. It's done. It's a little liar. Unless you're at Microsoft, you're not going to have access. So if you go subscribe on YouTube, you will get alerted as soon as it drops. You can follow us on X or whatever it's called these days at M365PNP, and of course the LinkedIn channel ak.ms/community/LinkedIn. Our next Power Platform and M365 bi-weekly call 2 weeks from today, April 12th, 7 a.m. Next week, Viva Connections, SharePoint Framework, October 5th. So definitely go get signed up for all those calls. And for those that are going to the conference next week, we look forward to seeing you. Have a great rest of your day and a wonderful rest of your week and a wonderful weekend. Thank you, everybody, for all that you do in this community.